Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. I just want to give a shout out to Rounded, our sponsor, because tax time's coming up. And that used to be really stressful for me, Rach. I don't know about you, but I love Rounded because everything is there for me, including invoices and expenses. And my accountant can log into the program remotely, use all my financial history to give me advice before lodgement, and then lodge the return when needed.
And best of all, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan.
Hi, Rachel. So this is our last podcast for the year.
Yay!
And oh my goodness, what a year it's been.
I know.
I think you're a bit shattered after this week, and we've had Christmas parties for Rachel's List. It's been a big week, but lovely.
Yes, it's been really good. I think a lot of people are hitting the wall now.
Or is that just
included.
us? Oh dear. But this year, the podcast, the Content Bite, has gone from strength to strength. We've had so many amazing guests, and of course the summit. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I also love how we're getting approached by so many incredible copywriters and agency owners and, business people. So we do want to put that out there. If you think that you've got a great story to tell and you want to come on the podcast, definitely get in touch with us for 2024.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're always open to guests and always looking for new guests. But yes, the summit. And the summit was also great because some of our guests kind of went over to the summit stage, didn't they?
They did. Some of our guests this year became speakers at the summit or went on panels. In the second half of the year, some of the panel speakers became guests on the podcast. So it was all a circular thing, which is great, wasn't it?
It's been a very symbiotic relationship between the two. Yeah.
And I have to say how nice it was last night at the Rachel's List Christmas party in Sydney, and I know they were all at the same time in other states as well, but people knew each other because they came to the summit. There was a group of 3 people that I chatted to from the Blue Mountains who got to know each other really well at the summit, and they came down to the party together.
Oh.
And I think there was a really nice atmosphere at the party because so many people had met in real life. And people came to the summit because of the podcast, and people came to Rachel's List because of the summit and the podcast. And again, all symbiotic. It was really lovely.
Yeah, I definitely think meeting people in person, like I used to love, I still do love doing online events. They're always great if you
especially
need to
when
be
you're
at
juggling
home.
times and
if
stuff.
you're juggling time, all of that. But that taught me so much. There's something to be said for stepping out of your home office and actually going to something in person. The incredible power of meeting people that you've only known online. They do suddenly, you deepen that relationship and you become friends and you get so many more opportunities. I mean, since the summit, I've been on 3 or 4 podcasts, people's podcasts. And before then wasn't really, you were on way more podcasts than I was. I never went on podcasts really.
I've been on 2 as well since the summit. So that's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. Just those small opportunities. I've gotten work out of it. I've gotten more job posters that have come to Rachel's List. So it's just that talking to people in person and creating those connections. You don't realize how vital it is to actually be there in person. And also, I think the drinks things after the conference days were really valuable for people.
When everyone was buzzing with all the interest. And that's the same. I think somebody said, we talked about it last night, that the thing about meeting people in real life, that people who listen to the podcast and members of Rachel's List and came to the summit, they get to know each other and they connect really well because they're all in the same tribe. They're our tribe. We're writers, we're content creators, we're journalists. We're similar. We've got similar stories and similar feeling. They're our people, Rach.
If you're listening and you went to one of the Rachel's List Christmas parties, we did a very ambitious thing this year where we tried to have a party in almost every city around Australia. And we managed it almost, but not quite. But it was amazing, like
It's lovely.
seeing all those parties happen, quite a lot of them on the same night, which was really exciting. And yeah, and Claire actually sent me a Voxer this morning, and she said it just feels so much deeper, the relationships we've all got. And it comes from the summit, like the friendships that we're all making. And, you know, we actually want to hang out with those people. There isn't a layer of awkwardness there anymore. And that can only filter into your business and help you grow. And I honestly believe it was the best thing we did. And even though I really like whinged and complained about doing it.
But also I think, like, I've referred work to people I met at the summit because now I know, as you say, on a deeper level what they do. So I got offered some work that was not my thing, but I knew whose thing it was. So I referred some white paper stuff to Egroni, and I've also referred things to Michelle Bateman, who does a lot of health and beauty, which I don't really do. So I now know people better, and also I've got work referred to me because people know what I do. So I think that some people feel that other freelancers are your competition, but of course they're not. They're your team. They're your collaborators, and certainly getting to know people, I think you actually end up the better for it, and you learn more, and you can actually get more work. And Jennifer Gregory talked about that a bit, didn't she?
And on that note, we probably should do a semi-official announcement because so many people have asked us, and we think you know, we were going to do the one and done conference, move on with our lives, but there's been so much incredible feedback, and people are still talking about it and emailing us and sending us presents and cards, and it's been overwhelming, really, that we've decided
to do another one. Well, actually, I thought I was probably going to do one, but you had to come to it.
I had to come to the party. But I knew, like, I even remember when we were first doing it and you said, we're going to sit back after this one is over and you're going to look at me and go, I want to do all that again. And I was like, no way. This is just not happening. And that was exactly what happened. So Lynn was right. I'm putting it on the record.
No, but it was a huge learning experience for us. And somebody asked me about how much work, and I said it was, but maybe because I've been doing freelancing and doing my own content business, it was time for me to really push myself and take myself out of my comfort zone. And doing this podcast, which is now 4.5 years as well, that took me out of my comfort zone, and that's been so good. And the summit was another level for me. For me personally, I don't know if you felt the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I felt like we had a crash course in putting on a conference, and now we know so much, and we know the questions to ask, and we know what not to do, and
we've got some great templates.
We've got templates, how to cut costs. I mean, that's something else that we are considering as well that we're going to keep under wraps for now. But there's something else that's going to happen this year that we are working on as well as the summit. So that's really exciting, and we'll share more about that in due course. But what we really wanted to do with this episode, it's the last year. We like to do a bit of a roundup at the end of the year and talk about some of the episodes that we loved and things that have stayed with us, or
some of the takeaways that we got. So of course, talking about the summit, which was great, one of the things that was of course wonderful was one of our keynote speakers, Ed Gandia, and Ed was a guest on the pod this year, sort of before the summit, so people got to know him a bit better. Now, you and I have been listening to Ed's podcast for a long time, and we were big fans, but not everybody knew him as well as we felt we did.
Yeah.
And his episode of the podcast was so good, and it really is exciting. And him talking about moving up the value ladder, that resonated with me so much, about how offering sort of more than just content, but he doesn't call it strategy. He calls it sort of being a partner with your clients and things like that. And I just think that was really interesting to me, and I really took a lot from that.
I think he calls it advisory, doesn't he? Advisory services.
That's what he calls it. Yeah. Advisory. Yeah. And he says we probably all do it, which we do when we write content, but you know, making that part of your offering. And that's something that, as we talked about at the summit, that AI can't do.
Definitely. I feel like that has become a real buzzword, that strategy, that advisory thing. He, you know, his talk really impacted on so many freelancers, and they, you know, a lot of people have shifted their businesses or started to really think about offering that as a service. And yeah, I agree.
Well, somebody said to me, I won't mention who it was, but when they left that Ed session, they said Ed session alone paid for the ticket to
Yeah.
the summit, because they could immediately see where they could get extra work and higher value work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it really changed a lot of people's minds as well, who felt like, well, I can't do that, or that's beyond my capabilities. But it's actually not, because half the time we're offering it anyway. We are brainstorming with our clients. We are, you know, drawing roadmaps for them and planning out their content strategies and editorial calendars. And, you know, we know this stuff a lot of the time. So
yeah, for sure.
So that was a really exciting
That
episode.
was great. And I know that Melanie Paget-Powers, who's somebody we've had on podcast before, she's in the States, but she did a really fabulous recap of the summit. She did it all virtually, and I thought it was really good. So I might put a link in the show notes to Melanie's podcast, and that sort of was a great summary. And
a really interesting thing to see how someone else experienced
the takeaways
it.
they get. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I really loved that. I also loved our chat when you're talking about podcast episodes with Bernadette Schwert. She is so knowledgeable about copywriting, and I found her episode really great. And she had some great insights into the sales journey, which I thought was really good, made me really think differently.
I actually, after that, I recorded some kind of mini webinars with Bernadette for her community.
Yeah, because she said she often mentions Rachel's list and the value. That was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had to do a quoting one, which I think is on YouTube. And it's also, there's other stuff in her community as well. But yeah, she's incredible. And you can actually train with Bernadette through her copy school or through the Australian Writers Centre. So she's definitely worth checking out. And she's got a fantastic podcast as well. I think she might have Kerry Sackville on this week talking about anxiety.
This week. And she had me, I was on it 2 weeks ago as well.
It is such a good podcast. So if you're a copywriter, definitely check out Bernie's podcast for sure. And it's called So You Want to Be a Copywriter? I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have a senior moment.
No. And I also, when you're talking about podcasts, I really loved our chat with Erin Huckle. Erin's such good value, and she does a lot of PR in this sort of marketing space. And she did an episode about award writing, which we thought was really interesting, and a lovely niche, talking about how writing for awards, how that can raise people's profiles, whether you're a content person or a writer of some description, or whether you're doing it for clients. It was a really interesting episode.
That was a good episode. It really kind of solidified my feeling, though, that I never want to write awards for businesses again. But it also made me really glad that people like Erin are out there. And I've said that to her, so that won't come as any shock if she's listening. But also it made me think about actually, you know, doing something that I don't really do, which is applying for awards and, you know, as a business and that sort of thing. So that might be something I think about doing.
I also think it's great to hear about different niches. Like sometimes when you talk about a niche, they talk about something like the one I do on interiors and architecture, because that's like a conventional thing, like a subject matter. But, you know, Erin's niche is not about the industry, but it's about this type of writing. And I thought that was really interesting. It means you can be a bit lateral with the way you niche your business.
Well, it also goes back to what you were saying before about, you know, knowing the right people and being able to quickly refer. That is a really valuable thing, you know, having that little black book. I would
definitely refer clients to Erin if they wanted to go for an award.
And we've used Erin's PR services before to help put the word out about the Content Bite. So, yeah, that's a really good episode if you missed it.
And I also wanted to give a shout out to our chat with Lee Tran Lam. So Lee Tran, I've worked with for a long time on and off over the years, and she's such a knowledgeable person about food, and her podcast is awesome, and as is her blog. And I love the story about the food media. She writes for Good Food and lots of all those sort of food mastheads that you dream about writing for. Lee Tran does write for them, and she did a great podcast on the history of food for the Powerhouse, which was really interesting. And I just loved her multi-layered career and how she juggles it all. I thought that was really interesting.
I know. What I found quite fascinating about that episode was how she's moving into monetizing her podcast.
Yes.
You know, kind of almost doing a content lock on some of the episodes and or aspects of the episodes. And I hadn't heard about that before. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I just like Lee Tran because she doesn't necessarily have the linear sort of standard writing career. It's been really interesting on lots of different levels. Yeah.
Well, I know one of my favorites, or one that really has stuck with me throughout the year since we recorded, was Beck Darrington from Source Bottle.
Yeah.
And this is a tool that, you know, she created for journalists. It is so, so, so useful. It's just become more useful over the years to find sources and experts for stories. But we didn't delve too much into that. We talked more about, you know, how she built Source Bottle, why she built it. She actually started as a lawyer and then ended up kind of completely doing a 360 into PR and then created this tool. And we really went a bit behind the scenes in her business and, you know, delved into a bit into the challenges she had. And I love hearing about how businesses have these challenges and how they've navigated them. So that was interesting. And also I loved how she talked us through newsjacking, because that's so huge if you can do it in the right way.
That was so good. I actually used that in a presentation a few weeks after that I did. So newsjacking is the idea of whatever's in the news and how you can tie, whether it's a pitch as a PR or a writer, if you're pitching as a writer, so how you can newsjack, as she says, like get a piece on top of a current event that's happening or a piece of news. It was really interesting and quite clever.
There's actually some notes. We started doing show notes and then we kind of abandoned them because we got way too busy with the summit. But if you look at the Rachel's List blog, there's key highlights and a transcript from that episode. And there's a whole section about newsjacking, which is really interesting. So if you want to know more, you can find that on the blog under Beck Darrington. Another one I loved, and I think I really spearheaded having Emma Gray on the podcast because I absolutely adored her book, The Last Love Note. Yeah, we had a really brilliant chat about something a little bit different, writing and grief, and how she, you know, almost began that book because she was just pouring out her feelings and processing her feelings after her husband died through her Facebook posts and kind of helping process that with friends and family and that sort of thing. So I thought that was quite interesting. And also
I really loved her book, and you know, it's done incredibly well from what I see. I mean, I follow Emma on Instagram and I know she's in the States at the moment and she's released it in the States and it's doing really well over there. They've just ordered a second reprint, which is great.
It's no surprise, really. We did talk a bit about authors being that much more visible on Instagram and how that helps their marketing and helps that kind of word of mouth carry the book along. So she definitely talked a bit about that. And the one thing I loved where she talked about the rejections chart. Do you remember that? Where she
she wanted to reach 100 rejections?
She had it on the kitchen wall, 100 rejections. And she said, I remember she said, the more you put yourself out there and get rejected, the less attached you become to every one of those attempts, you know, and you just hope that one will stick. You just have that hope and you keep doing it. And I just thought that was so smart and a really great strategy for, you know, anyone who's putting stuff out in the world, whether you're doing a pitch for an editor or pitching for clients or doing a proposal and hoping to get the green light back to start a project. You know, it's just, don't be scared of rejection, just keep going.
We did have a lot of amazing authors on this year. We both loved Charlotte Wood's episode. And I have to say that Charlotte's book, the Stoneyard Devotional, is honestly, I think, the best book I've read the whole year. It's amazing. It's and I know it's just been nominated for the Indie Book Awards. It's one of the finalists. And it's an extraordinary book and it's doing really well. But I love Charlotte and the joys. It's her 10th book.
Wow.
Yeah. And talking about making it pay.
We talked about that. I think it's interesting when you talk to an author who has left the trenches, so to speak, and they just write books, you know, full time.
There's not many. We've had a lot of authors on. There's not many that have it as their day job as well.
But I think we did ask her about, you know, that pressure to always better your last book.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. And the other funny thing that we talked about, I'm pretty sure it was that episode, is the Kindle notes. And I wondered if if authors get a report of how many thousands of people highlight the same passage in their Kindle on the book. And she said she never even knew that was a thing. And I got a little I felt like, oh, cool. I'd introduced her to the idea of the Kindle notes. But anyway, I also really loved Shannon Malloy, his episode. And he is still, you know, obviously working at News, sort of bounced from a couple of jobs, but is back at News, I think.
Yeah.
But also has had amazing success with You Made Me This Way. And
such a powerful story. And it was great. And I really... I wouldn't call it a fun read, but it was a really important read, and it's quite harrowing, but really amazingly done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other things that have really impacted me this year is when we've talked to business owners who have scaled really fast. Crystal Church was just on this week, and she's one of them. But earlier in the year, we had Sarah Spence on, and she was talking about how her agency grew to 20 people in about 2 years.
Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
I know. I mean, I just still think, how does anyone do that? But she talked about the challenges that come with that and how she naturally attracts neurodivergent people in her agency, which was so interesting. And I just think it's fascinating hearing, the different things that business owners have tried when scaling. And it's just interesting to hear, even if you're a freelancer who likes that model and isn't thinking about an agency model. Yeah.
It is interesting. I think for most freelancers, if you get to a certain point and you're doing well and you might be getting, I feel like I've been there a few times when you're getting so much work, it's hard to know whether you say no or whether you say yes and you grow. There's a real critical thing. So talking to agency owners like Sarah gives you an understanding of what that would involve and what it could look like. I think that's really interesting. It doesn't mean you have to. I've always stayed just me, and I like that. It makes you think about it, and I think it's crossed all our minds.
Oh, there's definitely pros and cons. Like, I love being just, a sole trader in my own freelancing business, but I've already reached out to a VA I work with to see if she would be open to more work next year, because I'm really thinking about what I can outsource so that I can focus on other things that I really want to do. So that's kind of important. But also on the other side, there's Rachel's List, and I have freelancers working for me. So the management of that has been a really interesting one. And that's why I like listening to how business owners, handle their staff or their freelancers, because you do get ideas for sure. Oh, I have one more, actually. Dex Randall.
Yes, love Dex.
You brought Dex on the podcast because you knew Dex from, you guys used to work together or something.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we used to live near each other. We're neighbours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I actually saw Dex on the weekend at a Christmas party, and he's great. He has such good things to say about burnout, didn't he?
I know. And I think obviously a good one for us to revisit at this time of the year when everyone's wondering if they're burnt out or just basically need a really big holiday.
Yeah.
But I think it really made me feel differently about burnout. And there's that whole myth of, well, if you take time off to fix your burnout, that's just going to fix it. And you said it actually won't fix it, because you need to look at the root cause, rather than the effect it's having on your work and on your life. So
it's interesting, isn't it? I think there is that temptation at this time of year when you're a bit overwhelmed that maybe you think, I'll have a holiday, come back in January, be all fine. I can do what I did last year, instead of looking at what you've done and whether there's a better way to do it.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it was really good.
But there were so many more. So many more.
Well, it's great that we just sort of went through and had a look at some of our favourites. That's us for the year, isn't it?
That's Rach? A wrap. It is a wrap.
We're back in early January. I think the 15th we're back with some great guests that we've got lined up, and we're very excited. We've just signed our deal with our sponsor Rounded with a whole new year, so that's really exciting. Amazing. And planning start on Summit 2024.
Yeah, we pretty much have our first keynote speaker in the bag.
We do.
Yeah, so we'll be revealing more about that next year.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, we're quite excited.
Yeah, and I should say thanks again to our sponsors, rounded.com.au, because they're easy in accounting and invoicing software, and they're just made for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So go to rounded.com.au.
So have a great Christmas, everybody, and we will see you next year.
Bye.
Bye.